It's not because you're wrong, it's because that system no longer fits you. The worst part of holding the memories is not the pain, it's the loneliness of it. Memories need to be shared. Lois Lowry, The Giver. You were once close to an Aquarius and thought you had truly touched their inner world. You believed that bond was permanent, or at least special, because it's not easy for them to open up. It's not easy for them to let someone in. But then suddenly, they pulled away. No warning, no explanation. They disappeared, as if you had never existed. And the worst part is, you have no idea what you did wrong. You don't understand. But Aquarius does. Because even they, at times, are afraid of the way they vanish from connections so suddenly. Aquarius, you felt things grow strangely quiet, but that silence isn't peace. It's a kind of disconnection. Without a clear reason, you don't want to talk. You don't want to text. You don't want to explain. You just want to disappear. But when you disappear, you don't feel rested either. You just feel hollow. And then you start questioning yourself. Am I just withdrawing? Am I getting weaker? Am I going in the wrong direction? No, you're not wrong. You're just being unplugged temporarily. It's a self-defense mechanism activated within you. When the frequencies around you become too chaotic, too artificial, too pressured to name, you did nothing wrong. It's just that the system you were living in has become toxic to you. And if you don't unplug yourself, it will keep draining you, little by little, through things that seem harmless. A small conversation, a short video, a message, a passing interaction that seemed accidental. But to you, every interaction carries weight. Every glance, every comment, every ripple of someone else's emotion, it all reaches you in ways they don't even realize. You absorb it all, like an antenna left completely open. And soon you can't tell what's yours and what's theirs anymore. You start noticing mental clutter, a heavy body, lost direction, impatience with everything, not because you're tired, but because you've processed too many signals that weren't meant for you, because you're Aquarius, and your operating system isn't built for being a social human. You weren't born to adapt. You were born to change the system. But to do that, you have to preserve your original frequency. And when the system around you starts broadcasting too much noise, you don't need to endure it. You need to pull back before your soul is overwritten by something you never consented to belong to. This isn't disappearing to rest. This is disappearing to survive deletion. You're not retreating out of weakness. You're dialing your signal back to its original state, a place no one can access. An energetic zone that only you understand. No one needs to get it. No one needs an explanation. Because what's being protected now isn't your mood, it's the structure of your soul. The only thing capable of guiding you through the next phase. When intuition gets distorted, Aquarius, you're tuning into the wrong frequency. You used to trust your intuition. You used to listen to your emotions and act on something deep within. And many times that inner knowing saved you from chaos. But ever since the world entered a new cycle of Pluto and Uranus, you've started to feel everything around you is distorted, no longer in sync with the rhythms you once trusted. You send a message, then regret it. You share a feeling, then feel empty. You connect, then immediately feel drained. And you begin to ask yourself, why did I act like that? It felt right at the time. Why does it feel wrong now? You haven't lost your intuition. You're just tuning into a frequency that doesn't belong to you. Every system has noise. But with a frequency as refined as yours, noise doesn't show up as volume. It shows up as false signals. You think you're sensing the truth, but in reality, you're picking up reflected signals from others. You think it's a gut feeling, but it's actually emotional residue from the collective. And here's where astrology explains this very clearly. You're an Aquarius, a fixed air sign. You don't process emotions in layers like water signs. You absorb all at once, like a hypersensitive radar station, constantly scanning for every frequency around you. Your ruler, Uranus, is the planet of nerves, intuition, and sudden breakthroughs. It has no soft boundaries. When overwhelmed, it cuts. That's why you suddenly retreat, disappear, for no clear reason. It's not because you're cold, it's because your energy field is programmed to self-reset. And the danger's this: you believe that what you feel is real, when in fact it's just a feedback echo from a system no longer aligned with you. The solution's not to find the old feeling again. It's to create enough clean space so your system can rebroadcast its original frequency. No echoes, no noise. Just you and the signal you were born to carry. You might not have noticed yet, but your body has started speaking in its own language. You still smile, but only on the surface. You still respond, but inside it's completely quiet. You still scroll, still work, still eat, but it no longer feels like you're living inside yourself. You stay up late without feeling sleepy. You wake up in the middle of the night without knowing why. You stand in a crowd, yet your soul feels like it's drifting somewhere behind you. Your emotions aren't gone. They just don't land anywhere. As if you're living in a replica of yourself, a shell that functions but feels hollow. You don't even know what you're tired of anymore. You just feel all the things that used to bring you joy now can't even touch your heart. And even though there's no clear reason, your entire inner system is slowing down, layer by layer, tier by tier, as if your soul is pulling the handbrake before something out there steers you any further off track. You used to think, maybe I'm just lazy. Maybe I'm feeling blue for no reason, but no, this is a sign of something deeper. You are experiencing energy overload, and your body, as fluid and responsive as a living radar station, has chosen the simplest response: a temporary shutdown. You are an Aquarius, a frequency all your own, a design that doesn't belong to any standard structure. You don't run on pressure, you run on waves. And the waves you've been exposed to every day are too chaotic, too layered, too low in purity. You've been processing all of it for far too long, without realizing you've been filtering for the entire system. But at a certain threshold, your nervous system can no longer carry the load. Not because you're falling apart, but because you were built to receive future frequencies, yet you're drowning in the outdated signals of the collective. And when the signal no longer aligns, reset becomes a matter of survival. You might endure for a while, you might keep up your daily routines like nothing's changed. But eventually you start to lose track of time, avoid replying to anyone, lose the urge to prove anything at all. Your body isn't broken, it's retreating to protect the original signal that's never been compromised. This is a turning point. If you don't voluntarily disconnect, the world will keep pouring in signals that distort the axis your soul once called home. And for an Aquarius, letting your frequency be diluted for too long is how you begin erasing yourself bit by bit. So you don't need to force motivation. You don't need to push yourself back into the race. You don't need to panic about why you feel empty. You're not lost. You're returning to the static free zone where your real signal will turn itself back on. You don't realize it yet, but there are connections silently draining you every day, not through conflict, but through the constant effort you make just to stay. Not everyone who exhausts you yells at your face. Some forms of exhaustion come from allowing your energy to be used without even noticing. They're still polite, still gentle, but after every interaction, you feel yourself dimming. Aquarius can adjust their signal to fit into any environment, but every time you do, you step a little further away from yourself until you can no longer tell, is this my true frequency or something I've absorbed from the world? A glance, a message, a memory. And once again, you feel your energy being pulled away. That's not emotion, that's an energy leak. And if you're feeling it now, it means your system has started to wake up. You don't need to react intensely. You don't need to make a statement. You just need to do what Aquarius does best: create an isolated frequency. Keep language to a minimum. Block access, even if you're still smiling. Aquarius protects not by cutting off, but by becoming an immune channel where any frequency out of alignment will naturally fall away. And if you feel it very clearly, that someone is using my energy, then know you're not being paranoid. You're picking up on the very signal you once sent out. but never recalled. By now you might be thinking, well, that's just how Aquarius is, always needs space, always needs to reset. But this time, it's not just another routine reboot, it's a full-scale recode. Not because you're overloaded, but because your original programming, where Uranus controls the entire transmission, is activating a brand new frequency layer. You are no longer the old version, but you're not quite ready to become someone else either. In the Aquarius birth chart, Uranus isn't just the planet of breakthroughs and freedom. It's also the regular upgrade station for souls coded with future missions. Whenever your energy enters prolonged dissonance, Uranus sends out a special command: shut down all running connections, to create a clear space so a refined version can be rewritten from scratch. And you're not broken, you're simply distancing yourself from who you used to be and awaiting a new access code sent back by your own soul. From the future, you stand before something that once made your heart race and feel nothing. You replay a song that once fueled your spirit and feel empty inside. It's not that you've gone numb, and it's not that the world has changed. It's that your inner frequency is switched to an entirely new coding system, and the things that once fit no longer sync. You try to connect, but no signal responds. You send out a message, but the sky no longer holds the old map. You make a plan, but your brain refuses to engage. You open your phone, then put it down. You write, then delete. You speak, then fall silent. You don't quite know what you're doing. You just know you can't go back to how things were. It's as if something inside you is quietly withdrawing energy from anything that no longer fits. The familiar job now feels foreign. The stable relationship suddenly feels heavy. The old dreams, you no longer see yourself in them. It's not that you lack motivation, it's that you've drifted away from your old self, but haven't yet downloaded the new one. And this is Aquarius in its purest form. You didn't come here to adapt to the system, you came to reprogram it. And to do that, there will be times when you must go through a near death with everything that once defined you. Uncomfortable, but necessary. Because if you try to keep going with your old logic, you'll end up dragging your new self back into an outdated operating system. If you're currently feeling uninterested in anything, unwilling to explain yourself, unable to connect with anyone or anything, then nothing is wrong. You're resetting, and resetting is how the Aquarius soul remembers why it came here in the first place. If one day you wake up and realize you no longer feel exhausted, it's not because everything has been resolved, but because you've stopped trying to understand things that no longer belong to you. You no longer feel the need to reply just to please someone. You no longer feel you must explain why you're silent. You no longer feel guilty for saying no to a meeting for the first time in a long while. You feel awake, no coffee needed, no forcing yourself to get up, no trying to stay positive. It's a cold awakening where you see clearly the things that once drained you, yet you used to call them normal. You can no longer bear half-hearted conversations. You're no longer interested in playing polite roles. You no longer wish to maintain invisible strings of connection. This is not a personality change. It's a sign you've just stepped out of a long, draining, energetic maze. An Aquarius returning to their original frequency doesn't need to shout to be understood. They only need to go silent, and their energy will naturally filter out who's no longer resonating. That filter doesn't come from anger. It comes from an intuition, recalibrated. Ever since Pluto entered Aquarius and Uranus, your ruling planet, sits in the 4th or 5th house, a process of deep layer awakening has been quietly unfolding. You no longer try to adapt in order to survive. You're beginning to decode yourself from the core. You appear unpredictable to others now. Your routines shift. Your music taste changes. Your way of speaking transforms. Not because you're trying to be different, but because the previous version of you was never the original. Uranus isn't just the planet of innovation, it's the broadcasting station of soul signals, ones you once unconsciously muted to blend in. And when Uranus touches root zones like the 4th house or unconscious realms like the 12th, it reawakens the soul data you brought with you, the ones society tried to overwrite. The reestablishment of boundaries comes without warning. No signs, no witnesses, just the quiet knowing you're no longer on the old frequency. And what can't keep up will naturally fall out of your signal. This is not about abandoning others. It's a natural purge from a system upgrading its frequency. No loss, just bandwidth being cleared, so your original soul can operate undisturbed. And that is why you came here, not to adapt to the system, but to reprogram it in your own way. No one knows what you've been through. They only see your silence, see that you've changed, see that you're harder to understand. But what they don't see is the nights you stayed awake, because there was no one you could truly share with. The mornings you wished you could just disappear, even though nothing in particular had happened. The moments you stared at your life and no longer knew where you were in it. You went through it all, unnoticed. And if you're hearing these words now, it means you've made it through the flickering zone within yourself. You're back, but in a version that no longer fits the old one. You won't want to rationalize everything anymore. You'll choose to feel instead of analyze. You'll let intuition lead instead of waiting for permission. Not because you're reckless, but because you know your soul carries a truer compass than any advice ever could. From now on, you no longer live to please any system. You no longer shrink or bend yourself to fit into any space. You begin to create a space that fits you, not to shield yourself from the world, but to finally explore the one within you, the one that's been forgotten. From now on, every decision won't come from fear or survival instinct, but from an intuition that's returned, sharper, clearer, and more honest. You'll start asking, does this resonate with my frequency? And if the answer is no, you'll no longer force yourself to keep it. That's how an Aquarius walks out of the maze, not to fight, but to become the only version capable of rewriting the rules. That's why they once called you strange. That's why you once felt like you didn't belong anywhere. That's why you once felt exhausted from carrying too much collective energy. But it's also why you're now leading a silent rebirth, one that needs no announcement. You don't need anyone to understand you. You just need to stop abandoning yourself. That's how the original soul of Aquarius is protected, by peeling away every mask of must make sense to return to the original energy blueprint you brought here. You've completed your reset, not to become a better person, but to become yourself. Uncompromised, unfiltered, unrepeatable. Where are you on this journey? Still tangled in the old self, or beginning to feel the signal from your upgraded version? Leave a comment below and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the messages tuned to the exact frequency you're awakening into. The universe always finds a way to speak if you're still able to hear.